Wow. Welcome to Targeted, the show for masculinity and success. And I'm your host, S.A.L.T.Y, former military commander turned best-selling author, now bringing you a podcast that you can use for sharing stories from highly successful men so that you can figure it out for yourself. Welcome. This is Targeted. Welcome back to Targeted. Today I have the unique pleasure to introduce to you someone that I've been following online for at least a year. And I reached out to him. He reached out to me, and then he gave me some things that he's been talking about. And I was like, gotta have you here.
Yeah, man.
And so today I have George Hayworth. He is the CEO of and founder of Elite Sentinel. He's a podcaster, got years of podcasting experience, and he's got more than years experience in podcasting as a speaker. And he's seen that in combat. He's seen that in the military. He's seen that on stages in corporate America. You may have seen him being posted for some of the things that he said because he's got a lot of great things to say. So I'm freaking feeling very blessed and jealous that I get to have you here and I get to spend this time with you. So thank you so much for coming.
Man, well, I appreciate it. And, thank you for the warm welcome. You picking me up from the airport and everything. Like, you guys, top notch. So already, for the listeners out there who don't get to see maybe all of what goes into making a podcast, this has been already an incredible experience, and I'm stoked to be here, man. So thank you.
Yeah, George.
What a studio, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Super jealous right now.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. This is whenever I burnt the boats, I started looking at all this stuff, and
Man,
I appreciate
great.
it. Thank you for saying that.
It's awesome.
So for people who may not know who you are, may not have seen you, how would you describe yourself?
So first and foremost, I'm a husband and father. Those are hands down the most important roles I have and ever will have. Outside of that, like you said, Elite Sentinel, podcasting, all that kind of thing. And really what my mission is to simply forge leaders so they can build legacies. I think for too long, we've treated men as second-class citizens in this country. Fathers are an afterthought, and you're seeing it in society, right? All the societal problems that America has with broken families and all the stats that come from when a father's not in the home. That's really my core mission, is equipping men so they can actually go change that in their own lives first.
Yeah.
And I think that grassroots movement is how we make cultural change long term. So, for me, I'm a patriot. I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
I love this country, and I believe that despite our flaws, we're the best country on earth. And this is the way that I'm continuing to kind of serve in my way to fight for the future of this country.
I love that. I got to challenge you though, man,
Okay.
because you're sitting in the seat. So let me challenge you a little bit. There's a lot of people who say they're coaches. Like the coaching boom is,
I know,
all the rage. And like people say they're coaching. I'm like, who are you coaching? And they're like, oh, I got clients. But no one has clients.
Right.
I think the client game is just a big lie for a lot of people. What makes your offering so much different that people are actually coming to you and saying, man, I got to have what you are
Right.
offering. I got to have it. What makes you different than everyone else who's kind of a loser?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a cut above the rest. I'm not going to, say that unequivocally. But yeah, there's a lot of frauds out there, right? There's a lot of guys who I think are cashing in on, the whole manosphere, whatever you want to call it, and like taking advantage of people. But number one, I'm the first client.
Yeah.
Everything that we teach and train in Elite Sentinel is all the stuff that George had to learn the hard way. And it wasn't until I started really implementing these lessons and these this wisdom and knowledge and tactics that my life improved. Before that, it was a mess. And so number one, I walk the walk. I lead by example. That is a core tenet that we heavily support within Elite Sentinel. And why we're different is because we get it. We're not about, it's not about trying to like get famous or that kind of nonsense. It's about making real impact in a man's life as rapidly as possible to help him regain his confidence, and then by extension, show up better as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, or just in his career if he's not owning a business. But for me, it's mission first, and then the business existed after the fact, right? And so it was a calling for me. And, just like with any business, any line of work, you can tell when someone, it's a calling for them more than just like a job.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. And so, yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of, sketchy people out there taking advantage of them. And I appreciate the question. I appreciate the challenge because I stand by what we do. As of this recording, We've had about 50 men come through the program, right? We started last September. It's currently March of 25.
Yeah.
And then on the side, I also do kind of one-on-one, more leadership coaching, consulting with business owners. But so in total, only about 50 or so men. But our objective is to have up to 40 men per quarter come through our 12-week program. That's where we'll build that cultural influence, because they'll take it, they become elite sentinels, and they'll go and amplify the mission in their own lives. And my number one objective, to close that off, is I don't want you to have to keep coming back to me.
Yeah,
my goal is to equip you, train you, build you up so that you're fully independent and sovereign over your life, and to move out and be like, hey, thanks, this is great. I never want to hear from you again. And I'll say, congrats, cool.
Yeah, how do you know when someone reaches that level?
It's pretty obvious. I mean, most guys, honestly, after just 2 or 3 weeks, they're like, whoa, I feel so much better. Because it's the first time in their life they've actually taken some ownership of the icky stuff that no one wants to share. And they're doing it with a group of other men. And that's such a critical piece of it, is they're not just fighting it on their own. Yeah. And they're really actually laying it down together. But by the end of 12 weeks, I mean, it is calculated, the process they go through. Yeah. So that by the end of it, even if they're not the master of everything yet, they understand it good enough, and they've built these relationships with the other men in their cohort. So when they move out, they still have the support system. They're not paying for that anymore or whatever, right? Yeah. They're friends for life. Forever. And that really is a powerful force to keep the changes permanent. They don't backslide. Yeah, so respect is earned. And when 100%. You have the respect of another man that you respect, you can't buy that, bro. That's the best. And you're offering that. Yeah, it is designed on purpose to foster and force working with the other men. You can't come through and be this lone wolf. There's no such thing. Talk about lone wolves. Yeah, there's no such thing. I've seen that post. Oh, yeah. I want you to. Please. There's no such thing as a self-made man. It's a myth. The lone wolf idea or mentality it's a myth. It's a lie. And, I know some very impressive men that I look up to, and I hope to be like. Every single one of them is surrounded by other great men, and they're friends with them, and they have hard conversations with them. I don't think that's an accident. I think it's how we're designed. Yeah. The lone wolf starves, right? It can't hunt effectively, but in the pack it can. So we ingrain that into our program heavily, because that's, I think, the number one need for men really is actual brotherhood, real connection with other men. It's not this feminine thing. That is highly masculine. It looks different, of course, but to your point, these guys coming through, they're from all different walks of life, different ages. I mean, we got guys who are 25 and guys who are 55. Yeah. But they become best friends through this process because we're all not that different. Yeah. We're men, and we have a couple base things that typically in our modern lives aren't being met. They're not being amplified in the way they should be. Yeah. And once you just hone in on a few things like that, a guy can really start to feel a lot more confident, and then he starts presenting himself to the world in just this new light, this new kind of energy that he has about him. And I know it sounds a little woo-woo, but it really is. It doesn't. It's a subtle shift. It really doesn't take that much. And I think the catalyst for that is they're not doing it by themselves, right? It's, George is great. I can tell you a lot of great stuff and teach you a lot of great things. But if you only had me, I'm going to fall short. I have limitations. I am but a man, right? But if you have 20 guys in your corner who are all thinking the same way, who have different experiences and connections and knowledge and wisdom, you're inevitably going to be better off just at whatever you do, because you're learning from all these guys. Dude, I can't poke holes in that. And I'll tell you why. Men, we have this yearning to be a part of a tribe that can hunt, that can take care of each other. Yep. But I always go back to like the Spartan movie, the 300. Oh, yeah. Where you have that hunched over ugly guy and he's like, I'm going to be a Spartan, right? And then he betrays all of his brothers because he can't be one. Yeah. May you live forever. Right? May you live forever in that space. It's crazy to think about that. But in that whole light, whenever I see people who actually ask for help, they're never that hunchback, ugly person. They're always somebody, an average guy that just needs to be part of a tribe or a pack. To amplify them, and you're offering that. So I think that's fantastic, man. Yep, that's why it works. So why 40? That's a very well. So what we'll do is I don't want it to get so big that it gets watered down. Right? It needs to be intense focus. Right? Platoon sized. Yeah. So I'm training instructors who have all come through the program too. No, there will be no outside people. It's only from within. They have to go through the experience, even if they don't need it.
Yeah.
They have to go through it so they understand it, right? We're military men. We understand that. You have to go through selections. You have to go through whatever school to be whatever part of unit. Yeah. Same deal here. But so I have 2 instructors currently as of this recording. My goal is to train 2 more, and then what we'll do is split into 2 20-man teams led by the 2 instructors, and I'll be over the top of it, kind of facilitating each. But part of that too is like, I mean, I'm doing stuff like this. I'm flying out on planes to do events, and
you got to let people know it's available,
right?
Yeah.
But the other reason too is, like I said earlier, I'm limited. I'm just one guy. Yeah. I work very hard to be the best I possibly can be, but there are areas of my life where I will never be the best at that thing, and that's where my assistant instructors come in, is because they are the experts in these other fields, and I've cultivated them on purpose because they have the same heart for this mission, number one, but then they have a level of expertise that I don't have that they're going to offer that all these men get access to. So 40 to me is that kind of round number where we will manage it well, right? We're early days. I don't want to go so far so fast that we stretch too thin, and now we're not offering the impact to the men who need it. And so it's mission first, right? And so even though that maybe cost me revenue, like it needs to be real. This change has to actually work for real consistently, so that all these guys who come through go and take the lessons that we've taught them and the skills to actually start making a difference wherever they live. And so that's why 40. It's merely a matter of logistics, but it's also to make sure that we stay on target to the mission.
Is this virtual, or do they have to show up?
It's the program itself is virtual by design, so that there's no limit in terms of like traveling and all that kind of stuff. But we do live events, and when you graduate the 12 weeks, we have a graduate program you can stay in called the Vanguard, and that's where we do our in-person stuff. So again, still early days. We're doing our first official Vanguard meetup in May of this year. We're doing another one in September. So we'll do at least 2 a year, but the goal is to do 1 per quarter, so that a guy can graduate the 12 weeks and then immediately get to meet the extended brotherhood, the extended network in person. As you and I both know, like, you know, we're doing it right now. Just
we are.
Spending time with another guy you look up to is
we live in the same world,
powerful.
though, man. I mean, but we were talking about it on the drive here. Podcasting is just an amazing world that is still open. Like, Hollywood closed, you know, and there's Hollywood people. And then news, I'm in the news. I'm an expert on a couple news channels. Yeah. They're closed, too. You have to kind of, like,
you can be part of the club.
But podcasting, like, you know, I talk to a lot of podcasters who are like, hey, if you want George's information, I'll give it to you. And they're like, give it to me. Yeah. You know? And I'm like, okay, here it is. Calm down.
It's real.
It's real because, you know, we're still talking. We're still at the human level, which is so cool.
And that's why it's in such high demand. It's not necessarily that we're the most special of people, but it's just we're talking about real problems, real issues that people can relate to, because we all have struggles. Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is like, look at the guy who's like, oh, I'm perfect, I'm the best at everything. It's like, red flag.
Definitely.
That guy may have an expensive offer and it looks cool and it sounds good, but I promise you there's something wrong with it.
For sure.
Because again, back to all the guys I want to be like, who are far, you know, greater than me, and they're further along the path of success and all that kind of stuff. Not one of them says I'm so good, right? They're all very humble, and they pay it forward, and they understand that they're just one person of what needs to be a team. So.
Yeah. Do you follow Gary Vee?
Not very closely, but I mean, I know who he is.
Yeah, so Gary Vee talks about that quite frequently, where he's like, you know, you gotta go after it. You gotta go. You're gonna get judged. What all that? Oh yeah, is gonna be part of the process. But like, you just gotta be you, man. Yep. And you're gonna fail. You're gonna mess up. Who cares? Just go after it. And he uses a lot of F-bombs in the process.
Yeah. I know his style, but he's not wrong. You know, you know, for me, you got to lay all the chips on the table, and I'm not for everyone. That's fine. If I'm not your guy, that's okay. Go find someone.
Find your guy.
Go find someone or some group that is actually going to be supporting for you and actually build you up, you know? And just most guys aren't doing that today.
Man, let me ask you, out of all the things that a man needs as a man, what do you think the number one need is today for men?
I think, at least in America, I think the number one need is genuine brotherhood, genuine connection. And I'd like to just define that a little bit, because I think people hear that and they think, oh, I got to join some team or something. You could, right? There's ways to do this, and I'm not the only way. I'm a way, right? But when I say brotherhood, I think the military isn't even that, right?
Not in some circles.
And I'm going to ruffle some feathers.
No, you're not.
You know, I loved everyone I served with. I had some extremely good friends. but part of it was me. I wasn't emotionally mature enough yet, in my 20s. But part of it was, I think there's this layer of you can't be as vulnerable or courageously transparent as you need to be. Because now it's going to impact the mission of, hey, we have to go and potentially die, right? So even that, there's a layer that you really don't get to. Whereas all my conversations, like the depth of conversation we're unfolding right now, I only have this level of conversation. Every man I talk to in my life who's a friend or a business associate is this deep. It's this honest. It's this open on purpose because, I don't want to be dragged back down to old George in the way I used to be. But most men are so desperate for that. I think that type of brotherhood where it's real enough they can be like, hey, you said you were going to stop looking at porn. Yeah. How's that going? Do you need some software? Do you need me to actually check in with you? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to like, control this guy. Yeah. But most people are too afraid to have the real conversation. And sometimes it's as simple as like in the inverse. Yeah. Hey man, that's exactly what you should be doing. Keep doing that. Yeah. Really? Yeah, man. Yeah. I would have done the exact same thing. Focus and execute. Oh, great. So that's what I mean by real brotherhood is it's not necessarily any specific organization. It's the depth of relationship you actually have man to man, because only another man knows the serpentine passages of your heart.
Yeah, man. I mean, so we're both Christians. So, I mean, I'll go into that right now. So everyone knows that Jesus has disciples and 12 disciples, but when you start getting into it, he only really had like 3 friends, man. Mm-hmm. And the people that he led into that inner circle, 2 of them were brothers. One of them was a woman. And so if you go way back in the Bible, God says you should have a woman to help you and as a helper, not as a weak type of role. That's a very powerful role.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in having a woman that will help you. But it's different for everyone. So right. I like how you put that. But
I think regardless of whether you're single or married, if you have a real tight-knit brotherhood, you're going to naturally start becoming the man you need to be because it's a forcing function in a lot of ways. Yeah. But it's also on the emotional side of the house, and men love to pretend we don't have emotions. We love to try and detach from that. But you are a human being. You're an emotional being, like it or not. The way we handle them is different. Yeah. However, you need that fulfilled, or you're going to be a husk of a person, right? You're not going to be your full capable self. And so when you have that type of deep friendship that you can cultivate with other men, it starts to just amplify your best qualities already because you stand a little taller. You feel a little bit better about yourself. You present yourself better. And that stuff, they're little things, but when you stack up a bunch of little things, it becomes a pretty big pile pretty fast in the positive way. So if you don't have that, right, it's the inverse, right? You're just getting chipped away little by little. The world's just beating you down little by little, and you're just wearing away, and there's not much left.
It sounds like accountability from somebody that you want to be held accountable from. Yeah, I said that right.
It's certainly accountability is definitely a massive component of it, but I think it's a lot more than that too. A lot of it is just, he understands. So this is a theme I see with every group that we've done so far with all the men, regardless of who they are, how successful they are, or whatever, or age. All of them go, I thought I was the only one. Yeah. I hear that every single cycle. I hear it with every individual client too.
I think society is pushing that.
Yeah. I thought I was the only one. Again, it's isolation. So like isolation is the number one problem. Brotherhood is the antidote. And that whole I'm the only one thing that's a trap. That's a dark hole that'll keep you down there.
I was reading this book about Christian parenting yesterday. And in the book, he was talking about social media and how your kids will gravitate towards social media before they gravitate to the Bible. Mm-hmm. And whenever you gravitate towards social media, there's that fake layer of everything's perfect, everything's funny, it's entertaining. And then you come back to real life, it's not that. Right. And then you don't want to read the Bible because you've already expended all your emotions, if you will, your emotional tax. How do you see that? How do you see social media today from a man's perspective? Like, has that been a problem? Like pornography, pornography obviously is a problem. We can state that. Yeah. But like, is social media creeping into why men feel alone?
Yeah, I think not just men. I think across the board, humans. Fair. At least in America, I guess you could say the industrialized world, whatever you want to call it. Yes, because we're more connected than we've ever been, and we're more isolated than we've ever been simultaneously, because your subconscious brain already understands that this isn't the real deal, it's a shell of the real thing. And so deep down, because we're programmed this way, we're created this way to have the real deal, your physiology and emotional state understands that I'm not actually getting the full, it's like getting the appetizer and never getting served the main course. And so if you're just seeing that all day long and you're doom scrolling social media, you're seeing everyone portraying their best possible selves, a shell of the real thing. You feel like you know all these people, but you don't really, and they don't know you. That's the biggest piece here. They don't really know you deep down. And so then you feel even more alone, and then you feel less confident about your own life, and you feel more insecure about your own life. And so that men and women, the same playbook works. It just starts manifesting in different ways. But then porn too. Yeah, I feel like I literally filter my IG like heavily. You know, I like block. You know, I don't want to see this content. I have the strictest safe.
Do you do that?
Every single reel I like all the time. Every time on the freaking app. Yeah. And even still, every reel it's suggesting to me is girls in bikinis. It's insane. You know, I mean, that is not an accident. That's not because I'm going and looking for it. It is pushing it on me. And so if you're not a very disciplined person, it's very easy to start falling down that trap very easily. It wants you to, right? So yeah, it's a dangerous thing. You need to definitely keep that in check. And again, that's where if you have real connection, even if it's virtual for now, but you're actually having the hard conversations, you don't want your little dopamine hit from this, because you understand that's potato chips and I have a steak dinner over here, right? So yeah, and this is, you know, the way I identify where most men are at today, right now, and why they need brotherhood so badly is that they're salty, they're stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and they're yearning for more.
That's an acronym, man. You just come up with that?
I've had it for a while, but yeah, it's one that you'll remember, but it fits because you are salty, right? You're all these things and you don't know why.
Say it again.
Salty, stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and you're yearning for more. Whether you know it or not, you are.
Yeah.
And that's why when guys finally get a taste of the real deal, they're like, whoa, I thought I was the only one. Nope, bro, we're all men. We all probably have the same 3 problems. It's your marriage, it's your money, it's your, you know, it's your self-confidence. We're alike.
I see that a lot. So, you know, I've interviewed a lot of UFC fighters.
Oh, yeah.
And military people, and the whole thing of like, why did you go into this profession, right? I wanted to do something that was bigger than myself. Be a part of something that was bigger than myself.
Yeah, that's me.
And so, like what you said earlier, you're like, I'm gonna offend some, ruffle some feathers. No, you're just exposing the truth, man. Like, you can go be a part of something that is bigger than yourself and be with a bunch of idiots sometimes. Yeah, it's not all the time.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you get some great folks, but you don't get to choose who those people are whenever you become bigger than yourself.
True.
Which is hard. So I'm going to go back, man. Let me go back to your program. How do you choose people to come in to be one of these few people that get the hands-on, you know, introduction to your world? Because you're like, welcome to my world. Let me tell you all about it.
Right.
And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
How do you pick people?
So, you know, we've got like our application process, you know, click it from the website, all that kind of stuff. But
what's the website?
It's theelitesentinel.com. We just updated it, actually. Pretty proud of it. So, you know, go check it out. Looks pretty good.
Yep.
And shout out to my developer, Maria, who did it. It's incredible. So, yeah, pretty proud of that one. But, yeah, you just go fill that out, right? Yeah. And it's not a test. It's just...
Be honest.
Yeah, the more honest you are, the more we know how to actually help you, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not a fit for our program... Like if it's just not going to be in alignment, or we can't deliver the results you're looking for based off of whatever your situation is, we're going to tell you. Like, I don't want to waste your time. It's not worth my time or yours to bring you in and then you be disappointed. That's just bad for both of us, right? I want to connect you to the right people. If I know the right people, I will connect you. But yeah, we filter it on purpose pretty hard because it's not easy work, for one.
Yeah.
We're looking for the seekers, the men who are like, I know there's something more for me.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do or how, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, brother. Let's work together. I need to see the willingness, because I'm just a guide.
Yeah.
I can't make you do anything.
Yeah.
I can only make me do something. So I can show you the ways to do it, and I can give you the guardrails and the advice and the wisdom and everything. But unless you are willing to look yourself in the mirror aggressively and be like, dang, I am the problem. I do need to change that about me. I need to change that about me, or I can do this differently. If you're not willing to do that, no amount of my coaching or anyone else's coaching is ever going to change it. So that's what I'm looking for, is just the willing heart. I don't care how messed up your situation is. As long as you are genuinely willing to fight like hell to improve your own life for the sake of you and those who depend on you, we can work with you. But if I get some inclination that there's something else going on there, or you're looking for some quick magic pill that's going to like solve everything in the world and make you a millionaire in a week, I'm not that guy. If you find that trick, let me know. But I don't think it exists.
John Maxwell told me, he said, people want me to come in and do a 1-day leadership seminar, and I just laugh. He's like, that's impossible. So like it takes time.
I mean,
to
we
change.
spent 3 weeks on just leadership.
Well, and it takes time.
It does.
It's not something that's built into us.
Yeah.
Like I think the common thing that's said is you're born a male, but it takes work to become a man.
Yeah. Leaders are forged. They aren't born.
And that's so important. And as a man, leadership is one of the things that I think is the most important thing.
You're designed for it.
You're designed for
it. The first pillar of manhood.
You talk about pillars.
Yeah.
So what are your 4 pillars again?
So it's king, warrior, mentor, and friend. Those are the 4 pillars. And it works like, if you think like the Greek kind of Parthenon structure, right, with a triangle roof, you have to have all the pillars there or the whole thing collapses, right? Yeah. So if you are only 2 of the 4, you're walking around with half of the equation. You know, you're showing up as half of a man. Yeah. And I really think most guys are falling into that. They're 2 of the 4.
Yeah. Well, what does king mean?
Yeah. So king at a high level it's that leadership skill. So the physical mimics the spiritual, right? The physical representation of who we are is just a glimpse of how we are designed spiritually. Yeah. And so men are bigger and stronger and all that kind of stuff. Amen. That's not an accident, right? It's because you're designed to carry the burden of command, right? You're supposed to carry the burden of leadership for the sake of others. And it's not a selfish thing. It's of service to others. It's a gift. Leadership is a gift. So men are uniquely designed to carry certain types of leadership differently than women on purpose because we should. And then on just an individual male level, it's very fulfilling and rewarding when you feel like you are serving a purpose. And when you're in a form of leadership, even if it's just you and your family and you're doing it well, you naturally feel better, right? So that's the first pillar. You want me to go through all 4 now?
No,
or do you want to dive into each one?
No, I want to hit king a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do it.
So
that's at a very high level. There's a lot more. So.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm just going to scratch the surface just a little bit more.
Perfect.
So I hear king, I hear leadership.
Yep.
But a king is always a king. So did you choose that word because it encompasses a whole...
I think it's the ideal, right? That's what you want to aspire to be. But it actually has nothing to do with your title. Yeah. Right? Leadership is an action. It's not a title. Now, we both believe the same things from a faith perspective. Men are heads of their wives and their families. Yeah. And that's what the scripture says, right? But when you actually live within that structure, everyone in the family starts winning a lot more, right? When men are more masculine, and women are more feminine, everybody's winning further. Yeah. We can dive into that. That's a little separate because that's more marriage dynamics. But even if you're a lone single guy, right? Yeah. Maybe a young man listening to this podcast, you need to start developing the skill sets and the presence of the king pillar, even if no one else is you're not responsible for anyone else yet. Yeah. Lead yourself. Start building the disciplines and habits so that when you do have people that you are responsible for, you're not having to like me. I did it in reverse where I made all this damage and problems in my life and had to fix it. Whereas I have guys who've come through my program who are young and just became fathers. And they are like light years ahead of men their age because they know the right way now and they're doing it and their wives are flourishing under their headship and things like that. So that's why it's so important. And then within that, there's 3 legs of leadership. Yes. I think you'll like this one a lot too. Please go. And this is universal. So if you're in any type of leadership role, I think these principles apply even in the military. And I learned this from one of my mentors. His name is John Michael Clark. And it struck me so heavily. He was talking about marriage, but then I was like, whoa, this is like all leadership. And so it's a leader has to have authority, responsibility, and compassion. So if you think like a tripod, take one away and the whole thing collapses. Yeah. Authority is literally just having the delegation or the position of actually changing outcomes, right? So you have to be the family captain, not the family butler, right? And that's his program actually is called the Family Captain. So check that out if you're looking for that. But the next one is responsibility. You own the outcomes. It actually has nothing to do with who's actually at fault. It's ownership of the outcomes. If you're a military commander,
Yeah.
Your first duty description sentence in your job code says, as commander of this unit, you are responsible for everything it does or fails to do, period.
Responsible.
So you are responsible for the outcomes. Now, it doesn't, if your kids break something or whatever, okay, yeah, they broke it, but what are you going to do? Are you going to fly off the handle and get mad at your family for it? Or are you going to own the outcomes? Like, well, next time we're going to do this and this differently. So that's ownership. And then compassion is the most important piece here.
Why?
Because if you don't have it, you're just a tyrant, right? You're overbearing. And so compassion is that leg that tempers all of this strength and presence and all those things to you love your people a lot and they know it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think this is universal. And obviously you're gonna kind of lean into different aspects of this depending on the type of leadership you're in, right? As a military commander, I'm a little bit more authoritative about certain things, but there's still a lot of compassion.
Yeah.
I listen calmly to NCOs who disagree with me or things like that. I don't get defensive about it. I hear it out. I stay stoic.
I didn't.
And I hear those things out, right? Well, I learned these things. Thankfully, I learned a lot of this before I became a commander, right? I had a break in service before I joined the National Guard. But I think even in the military, there's a place for the compassion leg.
Yeah,
it'll look different than with your family, of course. But when you balance all three of those things, you're now providing the service of leadership. Because sometimes that means you're going to have to discipline people, right? Mm-hmm. Because you love them. And you're not going to let them just continue to do the wrong thing and enable them, right? And you love your organization at whole. Yeah. So it's not like you're just this pushover. But I think a lot of guys, they fall one way or the other where they're Mr. Authority and no compassion. So they rule with an iron fist, which gets results, but no one likes to work with you.
No one likes that.
But then the other way where a lot of guys are at today is they're responsible for everything. They're the scapegoat for it all. They have to say, yep, that was my fault. And they love everyone a lot. And they're not empowered to change any outcomes.
I mean, I'm of the belief that the church is preaching that right now,
They are, yeah.
Hey, yeah, so like your marriage, your woman, whatever mistakes have happened, now you're the leader and you have to take responsibility, responsible actions for all the things that happened in their previous life. And that's something that you're responsible for as a man, and there's just a whole lot there that I won't unpack.
Right.
But the reason why I asked about compassion is I think that's a big part of why I started following you is because where a lot of men are like rah-rah, like let's say Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was on a podcast recently and they were like, do you like him? I'm like, no, I think he's a raging idiot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he presents and what he says is important is what a teenage boy thinks a man is.
Yeah, and
that's probably the most succinct way to
and sometimes he makes sense, but then I still don't like him. Right. I'm like, why don't I like you? That was good, but I don't like how you said it. The compassion is missing from him.
Well, is Andrew there to serve you, or is he there to glorify himself?
Absolutely himself.
Okay. This is the easiest way to see a strong, genuine man at whatever field he's in, whatever business, whatever thing he's doing. If he's out there presenting himself to the world as a role model, is he there to help others have a better life or better outcome, or is he there to just chase his own fame? That is the easiest litmus test to just judge someone. And if it seems like they're all about them, that's a good red flag, and you should not give them the benefit of the doubt, because like you and I both know some pretty impressive individuals, and they're confident, but they're not arrogant. They're not selfish. They do what they do because they know they have these skill sets that they can make other people's lives better by using it to the maximum extent, right? And that's
I love that.
I found that to be the most simple way to just at surface level, because I don't know these people to their core, right?
You're not going to.
But what are they presenting to the world? And you can kind of start to feel and infer. Are they genuinely concerned about the people they're speaking to and want them to actually have a better life, or are they just there for the paycheck and they're going to leave the second the speech is over, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that all goes back into the compassion. You can tell what fake looks like. You can feel it. You can see it. People see it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, you're faking it. Everyone sees it.
Right.
Why are you doing that? So I love that. So, okay, that's king.
Yeah.
What's next?
The warrior pillar. So this is of the utmost importance. First and foremost, you should hone your body physically.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons. Men benefit mentally and emotionally heavily from honing your body. But the number one reason is so that you have the capacity to defend the innocent, right? So the warrior is to be a protector, not an assailant or not a barbarian, right? Not a brute. But you should build your body so that you can physically defend the innocent. but the warrior pillar is so much more, especially in the world we live in today. The threats, the odds, at least in America, of your family getting physically attacked or harmed are pretty astronomically low. And you compare it to human history, it's like as low as it's ever been.
Yeah.
Right? We live in the most comfortable time of all human life.
That's why women don't.
So
think
you still
men.
need it, because if that 1% chance happens, you better be able to rise to the occasion and defend, right?
Yeah.
But where are the threats really present for our children or our families or our culture today? It's not people mugging you on the street. I mean, that happens, but that's lower odds than your kids being exposed to pornography or something sketchy on social media or, what sexualized books are in the school library and things like that, right? Where are the men standing up? Like for the last 40 years, where were all the men to stand up and say like, no, we don't agree with that. You're not going to do that.
For the last 20, we've been in combat zones.
Well, there's that.
I'm sorry. There's other men.
Yeah.
It's just the ones that I know.
Right. But it's not necessarily a title either. It's this mindset. It's the warrior mindset of these are the things I believe in and value, and I'm going to defend them, even if people don't like me.
Yeah.
Like, even if
That's
people
the
say
hardest
mean
part.
things about me. And this is where men have been crippled of they won't stand up in these kind of virtual arenas or the things that matter. And you don't have to get like public, right? But in your local area, go protect the innocent. And like I know a lot of teachers. My mother-in-law is a retired teacher, and at all these school board meetings at the local district board or whatever, there's like maybe one dad. It's always moms.
Yeah.
And so where are the men?
Bro.
Like, because who are the school board actually going to fear more?
Yes. Well, here's one. I'll give you a quick story. When my kid was in Rhode Island, I was in War College.
Okay.
And so I was more present than of the parental unit. I was present in my kid's life, and I wanted to be. I was in War College. So when I call the school, they'll be like, "We'll tell his mom." And I'm like, "No, you talk to me."
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, we always talk to the moms." And I'm like, "Not today, mon frere."
Why?
Yeah, that's the thing. So what you're pointing out exactly, it happened to me.
Yeah, and this ties really well into kind of the concept that people think that confrontation means hatefulness or malice, and that's not the case. And in fact, even in a marriage, right, you should actually kind of seek out confrontation when it's at its smallest piece to kind of root out whatever that dysfunction is as aggressively as possible. And that's what leaders do. They look for dysfunction and nip it in the bud as fast as possible, because then the course correction is a little tap. Right, it's not this huge jarring movement way back to equilibrium, but I can disagree with you. I can approach you and confront you about whatever the problem is, and calmly and stoically explain it to you, and try and help you see it differently. There's no hatred in there. That's actually loving you, especially if it's something I see you struggling with over and over and over again. Is it kind, or is it actually loving you to just let you to continue to suffer, or addressing it? Especially, and we're talking about children in this instance. Standing up for children who can't defend themselves.
Right.
Where are you? You being men in general.
So the word mentorship, the word mentor, it comes from a classic novel, Homer's The Odyssey. Mm-hmm. And the king was also a warrior and used to go out to battle. And what happened with this character and why it's part of our language now is amazing, because it fits really well into your king and warrior model. Is the king's best friend, a brother, would take care of the king's duties as a father while he was away. And there was a man there who had warrior experience to take care of the upbringing of these future men while the man was out doing war and came back to be the king. Yeah. So like we're missing that. Mm-hmm. Like it became like mentorship is actually a new word. Like we've only been using it for about 120 years. And the fact that we don't have enough mentors speaks to a lot of problems I think we have, that you're tackling hand and foot, just smacking this truth into people's face, whether they like it or not. I love it. And I love the mirror analogy too, because, you start with you. No one can tell your story better than you and the lessons that you learned. And most of us, we're all geared to listen to that and actually learn from someone else's hard times. My parents used to say there are 3 ways that people learn. One is by reading. The other is by watching. And then the third one is the one that you do, and that's peeing on the fence. It's electric. And I'm like, oh gosh. I'm always hurting myself trying to figure out the lesson. Yeah. And it's bad, but I'm glad that you can take your lessons and help people. So that's good. All right. So you got 2 more pillars. What are the other 2?
Yeah. Mentor is the next one. So way to set me up there. The mentor pillar is pretty self-explanatory for a lot of reasons. Like you just alluded to, we should be paying it forward to the next generation, right? And they may not be your kids necessarily, but just you've amassed a set of skills and experiences. You owe it to others. And again, you will be enriched by this because now all of your experiences or suffering or whatever is actually for a good cause. Yeah. It's actually making an outward difference now. It's impossible to not feel good about it. Like when you help someone else, a man feels like $1 million because it inherently means you're valuable too. Like, here's where it ties into brotherhood so critically too, where guys will be very hesitant early on to be like, well, I don't want to bother him with my problem. He's busy too. Brother, when you call a guy up and you say, hey man, I've got an issue and I really need your help right now, you just made his day. Here's why. Because you just told him that he is the dude that you respect and trust enough to bring your problem to.
That's deep.
He will feel 10 feet tall.
Wow.
He's never going to be like, oh, great, I got to deal with this again. It just won't happen.
Yeah. I've never thought of that like that.
So that's where that brotherhood connection is so critical. But the mentor pillar is a little bit more than just that. You need that. That's the peer group, right? Yeah. So you need your mentor, you need your proteges, and then people that you are mentoring, right? And when you do all 3 of these things consistently, you are being more fulfilled. You're pushing yourself to your max, capabilities and knowledge and all those things. But then you're also helping others do the same. And this is where we live in an age where words are being weaponized against us, right? If you corrupt the meaning of a word, you can control the culture. And so that's where words like mansplaining come in, right? It's trying to make men afraid of ever mentoring. Right. So instead of they're mentoring and then you try and stop them, it's trying to nip it in the bud so that men don't even step up. Well, they'll just label me a mansplainer or whatever. Right. It's all fear based. But when you're genuinely mentoring someone, it's not a, hey, listen here, idiot. I know what I'm talking about. Listen to me. That's not mentorship. Mentorship is, I see they're struggling or I see they have a gap. I can solve that for them. And I love them enough to offer my services. And if they're willing to receive, that's a win-win situation there. Right. And I look where I'm at right now, just running Elite Sentinel. The number of men I'd have to list who have been a mentor, at least in some small part. Maybe it was a single sentence they told me that just unlocked something in my mind to grow as a man. I mean, we'd be here all day just listing names, right? Yeah. And that's why it's so critical for man or woman, right? You need those peer groups and people above you and behind you. But as men specifically, we have an affinity for this. We want to do it, and I think it's programmed into us on purpose so that our society and our children and offspring can actually be successful too. Yeah. And so it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple, but I think it's of vital importance because if you're genuinely trying to mentor someone, you're already thinking of them more than you're thinking of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I see this in a lot of circles. Yeah, and I love, I'm a big proponent of mentorship. But what I'm not seeing is a lot of people do exactly what you said and just step out and ask for help when they know somebody can help them. It's a quick call a lot of times. And I've never thought of it. The way you put it is that's groundbreaking because when I do call people, they leave their house to talk to me for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. They're outside in the porch talking and they're giving me their undivided attention. I never really thought about it. Yeah. But because I'm asking them for help, they give it. And men do that. Your mom might do that. Your mom will help you become a better man. But there's not too many people in the world that do that except for other men. Mm-hmm. But I'm also not going to call, this is going to ruffle some feathers. I'm not going to call a woman to tell me how to be a man.
You shouldn't. Yeah.
So
women shouldn't ask men how to be women.
I don't understand that part of our society. Right. Like mansplaining came from a woman. So why do I don't even like that word.
I mean, that goes back to the curse, right? Yeah. She will crave his power, but he will rule over her, right? So it's the natural, state we're in. That's the way that will unfold. But that's why men need to step up. And if you're not a king and warrior, you can't kind of hold the line on some. You're right. This is being sovereign and not caring about what people think about you is often the right cause, right? And just a quick example on that, we had a guy in our program. He was, I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but basically he took his kids to a thing and his daughter's younger, and she wanted to try the thing, but she got a little scared, and so instead of just like pulling her out of it, he like coached her through it.
Yeah.
And then the staff was like, you need to help her. Like they were like telling him how to parent, right? And so basically the whole place was basically telling him that he's a bad dad. Well, then he brought this to our attention, right? In the Vanguard, laid out the situation, and literally every man in the group was like, no, you did the right thing. You're training your daughter how to handle her emotions, and it wasn't dangerous, and all these kinds of things, right? Yeah. This was a great teaching moment, and you're building her confidence up. And she asked to go do it again after she got over her fears and stuff. But he was convinced that he was wrong because the world was telling him he was alone in this moment. And thankfully he had us to be like, no, man, you handled that very well. Right. And you were mentoring your daughter exactly how a father should. And you were present and engaged, and you know her limits and you know her things. And you pushed her just a little bit outside of her comfort zone, but not to the point that it's breaking her and that kind of stuff. And if someone else is uncomfortable with it, who cares? That's their problem. Yeah. Their dad didn't raise them right. Yeah, and so that's where it's not arrogance, but it's just like, I'm not going to be swayed by these people who don't matter. No offense, but the random people on the street don't matter because you don't know me. You don't know what I'm trying to accomplish. Guys like you, I'll listen to. Yeah. Guys that I've built relationship with and trust, and they know what I'm trying to do, and they'll be like, hey, George, you're being too intense, bro. Yeah. Chill out. Oh, you're right. Roger that. That's what I'm talking about. So
I don't know, man. I don't believe so. There's a lot of things that I saw as a child that I don't see today. And one of the things that I've seen society step away from is the ability to use violence as a solution. When I was a kid, I used to see a lot of fights. Yeah, I mean, I did. Men used to fight each other.
Yeah, especially boys too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got in a lot of fights as a kid.
Yeah.
Not for no reason, obviously. I'm a likable guy.
Right.
But people wanted to fight me to prove something to themselves, maybe. I don't know. I think everyone should get hit in the face at least once because it'll make you realize, ain't that bad. You can say what you want to say.
Yeah.
But the violence factor has gone down, and that unfortunately has stolen a lot.
Well, if you ingrain it into young boys and they never become men, and they be conditioned. I have guys reach out to me and they say this, right? They were raised by women. They're afraid of working out. They're afraid of becoming physically powerful because they're afraid of like becoming this tyrant or whatever, right? Because their dad was a bad guy, right? And there's
where their mom told them that their dad
all
was a bad guy.
fear, but you're right. It's all fear based. It's all based out of fear. They're afraid of who they are genetically. And so if you corrupt the mind at the age of 6 and convince him that he's evil just because he exists, well, he's never going to become a man. He's never going to become the guy that he needed to be because you crippled him in his youth, right? And that's why. That's exactly why there's no more violence. Like they talk about in the book, The Coddling of the American Mind. At the very end of the book, they talk about how boys they're not allowed to like play outside in the dirt as much anymore, and they don't get hurt and all that kind of stuff. It's like they need that.
They do.
The way boys learn lessons is through action and doing, and like you said, peeing on the fence. We learn the hard way often.
Yeah, we
and
do.
Now it needs to be controlled, right? It's controlled chaos, but there needs to be the chaos for them to learn about themselves and their bodies. And not every boy is the same. I'm not saying they're all like little gorillas running around, but
I mean, we went from broken bones to broken homes.
Yeah.
And why? And it's because of all the things that you just described.
Right, so then carry that over now. Those boys have all grown up, right? I'm 36, so when you were a boy, I wasn't even born yet, probably, right?
Yay! Call me old, but don't call me old.
Wise, distinguished. You outrank me in a lot of ways, right? You're further along in the journey, and so there's a lot of wisdom I can gain from you. But your experience is probably a little bit different than mine too. And now, all those boys are grown up as men. But they're just a hollowed out shell of who they needed to be. And so they're almost afraid of themselves. So of course they're not going to step up and fight for their kids. They were never taught how to stand up and fight for something that they care about and believe in. And again, standing up and holding the line on it to defend, it's holding the shield. It doesn't mean I hate you. It's just like you think you're right, but it's actually harming. I'm going to be in the breach and defend against that. And you can call that aggression if you want, but that's called purpose. Yeah. And that's called what we're designed for.
I'm with you on that. I think every boy should be called to certain things, like be the defender. Like whenever I leave, I tell the boys, I give them all specific man roles. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be here.
Good.
I need you to make sure that the house is locked up every night. I'm calling out the defender. You know what I mean? And them, hey, I'm not going to be here. So when you're out in public, I need you to watch the doors for any potential dangers. I call out the things that are purely innate to us that we don't get taught in school anymore.
Yeah, well, here's one. Did you ever write a passage to signify when you became a man?
No, that's a societal thing that doesn't exist anymore. But yes, I did.
Really?
You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. Like when I was growing up, you're
the first guy to say yes to that.
The first time I ever had to write a passage was when my dad took me out with my grandpa and said, "We're going to shoot the gun, son." And I'm like,
okay,
I get to shoot this thing?
Yeah, but did he sit you down and explain to like, hey, you're on your journey of becoming a man now, and this is why, and like these higher things?
Maybe alcohol was involved.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is most guys, it's like, I asked this in my keynotes. When did you become a man?
Yeah.
And I pause and I wait for answers.
Yeah.
We'll sit and wait until someone says something. And they'll be like, oh, my first beer, first time I had sex, I joined the army or whatever, right?
Yeah. There's a lot.
Is that really a rite of passage? Like, is that the ideal?
We'll define.
Is that
it,
what we should?
You know what I mean?
I think I'm not the expert on this.
No. I mean, I think you
what
are.
What should it look like? Well, no.
In your own story, you can probably find a moment where you're like, shit, I'm a man.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to Afghanistan, right? Oh, I'm definitely a man now, right? I'm a combat vet. Nope. I was like 25% of what a man needed to be.
Yeah.
I was a lot of warrior.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. Well, shoot, I wasn't a warrior over my emotions or the things that really mattered the most, my home life, right? I wasn't all these other things I needed to be.
Yeah.
I thought being a man was just, go prove yourself, doing something bigger than yourself and go to war and all that kind of stuff. And now you're a man, right? In some ways, but it's complex, right? And so that's like what you were describing with your boys. That is, I love that. It's intentional. There's a purpose behind it, and you're slowly giving them levels of responsibility that signify you're elevating, right? But men need symbols. That's why we look around. We have symbols everywhere in this studio.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we appreciate what it means. The meaning behind it is critical. So what's the most important meaning a boy needs to get from his dad and other men that his dad, has cultivated around them? Signifying that you're one of us now.
Accepting.
You've become a man.
Yep.
Right? Now you're expected to live to this higher standard. And we don't do that.
Well,
at large as a society, and that's a problem.
Jewish cultures do at the bar mitzvahs.
Right, but I mean, America at large,
so in Africa, you're absolutely right. In Africa, they go lion hunting.
Right. This is a uniquely Western American problem.
It is definitely a first world issue, and maybe that's why we have boys living with their parents in the basement of the house that they grew up in until they're 30, whatever.
It's an element of it for sure.
Yeah. Stay with us as we stay on target with another awesome episode coming up next. We'll see you there. And subscribe to Targeted Now. As an ambassador to buckedup.com, I get to give you our special discount. That's Atlas25 when you go to buckedup.com to get that special discount. Only for our listeners, Atlas25. Go to buckedup.com now.